All right, today we're diving deep into the 2025 results for China Medical System, or CMS. And from an investor's perspective, this report is pretty fascinating. It's not just about the numbers, it's really about a company that's right in the middle of a huge strategic shift. So let's just get right into it. Exactly. And for anyone who's not familiar, think of CMS as a crucial link in China's massive pharmaceutical market. Their whole thing is finding innovative drugs and then bringing them to market. But 2025, well, that was the year where that model was really put to the test. And, as we're about to see, it evolved in a really big way. In fact, the company itself called it a year of comprehensive refreshing for its growth drivers. So how are we going to unpack this whole transformation story? Well, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll set the scene for what made 2025 such a pivotal year. Then we'll get into the financial scorecard, the headline numbers. After that, we get to the most interesting part, the real story behind those numbers. From there, we'll look to the future by checking out their R&D pipeline, and we'll wrap up with our take on the road ahead for any investor. Right. So you really can't understand CMS's performance unless you get the bigger picture of the massive shifts happening in China's entire pharmaceutical industry. I mean, the whole game is changing. The government is pushing hard for real, genuine innovation, and policies like volume-based procurement, or VBP, as you'll hear it called, are just squeezing the profits on older generic drugs. So companies have to adapt or they risk getting left behind. And that's the backdrop for literally everything we're about to talk about. And this quote, which is straight from their own annual report, just drives that point home, doesn't it? The company isn't trying to hide from this, they're actually leaning right into it. They're framing the entire year as a deliberate strategic transformation. It's like they're telling investors, hey, we know the industry is changing, and here's exactly how we're changing with it. It just sets the stage perfectly for this story of transition. Okay, so let's see how this transformation story actually shows up in the financials. Because at first glance, the numbers are, well, they're a bit of a mixed bag, which honestly makes them way more interesting. You've got strong growth in some areas and then a dip in another, which immediately raises a question for any analyst: what is really going on under the hood here? Oh wait, first up, let's talk about the top line turnover, or what we usually call revenue. It's up almost 10%, hitting 8.2 billion RMB. That is a really solid number. In a market that's this challenging and changing this fast, seeing that kind of growth in your main revenue figure is a super clear sign that demand for their products is strong and their commercial engine is humming along. For an investor, that's the first big positive checkmark. Now, here's where things get a little more nuanced. The company also reports a number they call normalized profit. Now, we'll define this properly in just a minute, but for now, just think of it as the underlying, ongoing profitability of their core business. And that figure is also up by 3.6%. So top-line revenue is growing and core profitability is growing. So far, so good, right? And here's the crucial part. That confidence is being passed directly on to the shareholders. A 9% increase in the total dividend, that is a strong signal for management. Companies just don't typically raise dividends like that unless they feel really good about their financial health and their future cash flows. So the story we're getting so far is growing sales, growing core profit, and growing returns to shareholders. But here's the puzzle we hinted at. If revenue is up and that core normalized profit is up, then why on earth did the main reported profit figure actually go down? This is exactly the kind of thing that can make investors a little nervous, so digging in to find out what's really going on is absolutely critical. What's the real story behind these numbers? And this slide just lays out that puzzle perfectly. On the left, you see the number that would grab your attention first, reported profit, down 10.5%. Ouch. But then on the right, you've got that normalized profit figure we just mentioned, which is up 3.6%. So which one tells the true story of how the business actually performed in 2025? Well, the answer is in the details. And here it is, the key that unlocks the whole puzzle. Normalized profit basically just strips out any one-off items that aren't part of the regular day-to-day business. And in 2025, there was one really big specific item, a one-time tax payment of almost 279 million RMB. So that drop in reported profit, it wasn't because the core business got weaker. Not at all. It was all because of this single non-recurring event. That normalized profit figure of plus 3.6% is actually a much better indicator of how the underlying business really did. Now, this This is where it gets really interesting, because this slide shows us why that underlying business is doing so well. This is the engine of that transformation we keep talking about. Just look at the revenue mix. Innovative and exclusive products now make up almost 60% of their sales. That's up from just under 53% the year before. This isn't just some small shift, it's a fundamental change in the company's DNA. They are successfully pivoting to higher value, higher margin products, which is exactly the strategy you want to see them using in this changing market. So we've pretty much established that the current business is healthy and it's successfully transitioning. But for any investor, the very next question is always, okay, but where does the future growth come from? And for a pharma company, the answer is always the pipeline. So let's take a look at the research and development that's supposed to fuel CMS for years to come. Yeah, this chart might look a little complex at first, but it's basically a roadmap to the company's future. It shows the whole journey of their products, from those early-stage clinical trials all the way to drugs that are already on the market. And you can see a really wide range of products across different stages and different medical fields. A healthy pipeline is a diversified one, and that's exactly what this picture represents: multiple shots on goal for future revenue. And it's not just about what's in the pipeline, it's about making progress. This slide breaks down the momentum in a super clear way. 2 new drugs were fully approved for marketing, 6 more are under NDA review, and an NDA is a new drug application. That's the final paperwork you submit to regulators for approval. It's a huge step. Plus, 6 of their own in-house R&D applications got approved to start trials. This shows the R&D engine isn't just big, it's actually moving forward, and at a pretty good pace. Okay, so let's try to pull all of this together into a forward-looking view. We've seen the solid financials, we understand the real story behind those numbers, and we've had a look at the pipeline that's promising future growth. So now, let's talk about the specific opportunities and, of course, the risks that an investor should be watching on the road ahead.
This really gives us a great, balanced summary. So on the opportunity side, the proposed spin-off and separate IPO of their skin health business, which is called Dermavan, that is a major potential catalyst. It could unlock a ton of value for shareholders. They're also making a serious push to go international from their base in Singapore. But of course, there are always risks. A big pipeline is great, but you have to actually execute and get those drugs to market. And let's be honest, the pharmaceutical industry is just intensely competitive. These are the factors that will most likely decide how the stock performs going forward.
So the key takeaway is really this. What we're seeing in the 2025 results is a company that is successfully navigating a massive industry shift. They're moving away from older business models and pivoting hard towards innovation. The numbers totally back this up, but the story isn't over. The next few chapters are going to be written by their ability to turn that impressive-looking pipeline on paper into real revenue-generating products in the market. From here on out, execution is the name of the game. And finally, just a quick note before we sign off. This content is intended to serve strictly and only as an informational, independent, objective summary of recent events, and should in no way be interpreted, construed, or relied upon by any party as inside information or financial advice.